Mario.
Be careful, it's a trap!
You were close.
Emergency maneuvers!
I am the Lord of Deadside.
I saw my life flash before my eyes! Sorry to jet, but I'm in a hurry.
Hello, and welcome to Strictly 64. I'm your host, Clay, and today I'm joined by Kay. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, mate, you alright?
Yeah, dude, I'm doing good.
Good.
This is going to be a good episode, I can tell.
I've got high hopes for it.
I do as well. So something we've been doing the last couple weeks, guys, before we jump into our main game for the week, we do a little bit of off-topic banter, whatever that might be, whether there's a recent N64 news or things going on with us, or just talk about other video games that we're playing. But there's a couple things here I wanted to bring up before we jumped in. First thing is KayandClay.com have a new podcast. Isn't that right, Kay?
Yes, it is.
Please, would you care to tell us a little bit about it?
Okay, so I am a not quite lifelong, but a long-term fan of the British sci-fi series Doctor Who. And me and collaborator David, he was on the Ocarina of Time episode of Strictly 64. He's a big fan too, so we decided to do a Doctor Who podcast. It's called The Podcast of a Time Lord, and you can find it alongside Strictly on all the usual channels. We've got a separate iTunes feed, and we've got the YouTube uploads going on the same channel as this. And if just head over to kayandclay.com if you want to click on the individual episodes and take a look. It's good. And even if you're not a fan of the show, maybe give it a listen, and might convince you to tune in to the new series, which has just begun.
Awesome. Yeah, I've listened to a little bit, pretty much the full first episode and part of the newest one here. So I'm not a huge fan of the show, but I tuned in anyways just to see what was going on. So it sounds really good. Like, you guys are doing a great job. It's cool that we're coming up with more podcasts, doing some different things with some different people. I've got something in the works right now for another show as well, so we'll see what happens with that. But for right now, obviously, we're here to talk about N64 games. For those of you who don't know, we are on social media. We are both on Instagram and Twitter. And so this week, it was actually last week or a couple weeks ago, under my post about our Shadow Man episode, so it was a while back now, a buddy of mine who I knew through Instagram, never met in real life, but his name is Johnny Regret 11, and he left us a comment, and so I just want to give him a quick shout out. He said he was still trying to catch up. He was on Top Gear Rally before he was going to be all caught up, but he said, loving the show so far, guys. Although I don't think I got to hear The Simpsons being played on the Ocarina.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was meant to record it, and then I just never got around to it because Switch came out and there was different things happening. And I'll do it one day. Don't worry.
Well, I just want to let you know that not only me but other people, listeners, are disappointed that never came. So
okay,
not trying to put the guilt trip on you. Just want to let you know that people have demands, and when we make loose promises, we should try to stick to them.
Yeah, we should do. Well, as you know, I'm starting to begin formative work on a few videos to go on the YouTube and the website. So maybe I'll do an Ocarina Simpsons video just for Johnny Regret.
All right, I'm sure you'd appreciate it. Couple other things. This week I bought 2 games for the N64. I bought Hybrid Heaven was the first one. I got that because I was watching a video on YouTube. I don't remember whose it was, but it was basically underrated N64 games, which I love watching videos about underrated, like, games that you might not have heard of that are really good. And this
Right.
one was mentioned. It's a third-person shooter of sorts. Kind of got the same view, kind of a Shadow Man, where you're kind of behind. But the big thing I noticed with this one is that I think the combat is mostly turn-based.
Yeah.
But it's also a shooter. I don't know. So I don't know a lot about it, but he spoke real highly of it. It was like $5, so I grabbed it. So I'll be giving that a little look-see here eventually and see if it's any good. You mentioned that you'd heard of it, right?
Yeah, no, I've heard of it. I've never played it, but I've heard good things about it. So
Okay.
I'll be picking it up at some point. And yeah, that's definitely one to go on the schedule.
Yeah, maybe in the future. Or I'll play it and not really like it, and then maybe we won't do it for a while. But who knows? We'll see. The second one I got was Animal Crossing, or Animal Forest, technically, I guess. So for those of you who don't know, Animal Crossing came out in Japan originally on the N64, and then later came to other countries via GameCube. And so it only came out on N64 in Japan. And so this is one that I always wanted to pick up. I'm not the biggest Animal Crossing fan, but I am a decent fan. I have a couple of the games and have played some of them a lot the way through. And so this is always one I wanted to get. So I got it the other day. Actually, I got it today. It just came in the mail. And so right before we started recording, I turned it on, put my Game Shark in just to see if it worked and everything. And also I noticed the cartridge is super heavy. So there must be a lot going on inside there. I assumed to kind of something going on with, the internal clock and keeping time and all that stuff. But anyway, it fired up and it worked great. And just want to say that game looks freaking beautiful for an N64 game. So probably one of the best looking games I've seen on it. I don't know how late into, like, if it was one of the last games.
It was very late, yeah. That's the
Okay.
reason it never got translated, because it was so
I
late
figured.
in the lifespan.
Yeah, that was my guess.
So is the N64 version pretty much one-to-one the GameCube? Is it like the same basic game?
That I don't completely know, but from the 4 minutes that I played it appeared that way. Like the opening
Right.
was the same, the music was the same, the menu and like getting out your items and stuff. It all felt the same. So that's a good question. I'm sure there's literature out there that talks about it, but it wouldn't surprise me if the majority of it is. I know the original one on the GameCube, you had all those like NES games you could play. So
Yeah.
I don't know if those are in
they're in
this.
there. Yeah, they are.
They are?
Yeah, I know
That's
about
awesome.
that. Yeah, because I actually followed the development a bit in the British N64 magazine, and I remember reading that like really early on, and I was excited to play it, but alas, it never came. And to be honest, I've never played Animal Crossing in my life. When it eventually came out on the GameCube, I just for whatever reason never picked it up, and I've never played any of the sequels. So.
Yeah, I don't know how easy it would be to play. Obviously, it's in Japanese.
Yeah.
For those of you who listened to our episode last week, but this is a little bit easier to figure out. Like I can still kind of walk around, and I don't know what anybody's saying, but I kind of know how the main mechanics work and everything.
Okay.
So there's already a save file on there, and it seems like the person's done quite a bit. So he might even have all the little video games unlocked. I have to look and see. But speaking of Japanese games, I was listening through last week's episode, and I kind of talked over you at one point, and I realized I was saying some stuff that I eventually realized wasn't true. So I just want to make a quick correction. I did mention that we needed to get you an adapter so that you could play, Japanese N64 games. Then later I realized you can't do that like I can do that. And so I felt kind of stupid, so I just wanted to bring that back up. Apparently, Japanese and US games work. There's just that little thing on the back of the cartridge that keeps you from doing it. But if you just use a Game Shark or whatever, it works. But I guess even if you did that over there, it wouldn't work. So actually getting you to play Japanese games, it would be a lot more difficult. It sounds like you'd either need a Japanese N64 or a US one. So anyway, that's not super.
Well, I've got a point to make to that, and I'm going to have to do some research, but
Okay.
I distinctly remember getting an American version of Pokemon Stadium 2 and it working out of the box.
Really?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into this. But I was thinking about it this week, because I've been talking a lot about import games and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I got Pokemon Stadium 2 from like a local like video game hobbyist store. They got a lot of import stuff, but it's possible I'm wrong. They might have just got an early version of the PAL one, but I'm pretty sure I remember the ESRB logo on the front. So yeah, it's something to look into anyway, and I'm sure we can get to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually pricing out Japanese N64s just because they have a lot of really cool colors for way cheaper than what they go for out here. Like I saw this one that was half blue, like light blue, half white, and it was like under $50, and I was like, oh, I might have to get me one of those. So I might grab one of those eventually. But anyway, that's about it as far as off-topic conversation goes. Unless you got anything else you wanted to say.
No, I'm all good, dude.
Cool. All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into today's game. This is a good one. This is one of my faves. This week we are talking about Wave Race 64. Now, to kick off this episode, we are each going to take a brief moment to give our overall thoughts on the game, as well as mention our history and past experience with the game. Kay, you want to start us off?
Okay, well, it shouldn't be long for me. I never owned Wave Race back in the day. I played it a couple times at a friend's house, and I think I struggled to like get a good grip on the controls. I think I was trying to play it like it was Mario Kart or Diddy Kong or something, whereas it's got, obviously a bit more depth than that. But I liked the water effects and I liked the music, so I've always had a little bit of affection for this game, but it's not one of those that I've got like a huge amount of nostalgia for. Eventually I got it on the Wii U Virtual Console around about a year ago, I think it came out over here. And again, I played like 2 or 3 rounds, but for whatever reason, I was playing a bunch of other stuff at the time, and I just never, just wasn't the right time for me, and just couldn't really get into it back then. And so we knew this was coming up on the schedule, and about a week ago, I threw it on and played a couple more rounds, and I started to get the hang of it. We'll talk more about the controls later, but there's definitely a trick to the controls, and once I sort of started to master that, I started to have a lot more fun with it. And then, over the last day, I've been playing a lot of the championship mode, and I've got to say, I'm actually a new fan of this game. Before I just thought it was charming, and now I actually think it's really, really good.
Dude, that's awesome. That's good to hear.
So what about you then, mate?
This was one of the games that I was given right off the bat when me and my siblings first received our N64, so it was one that I kind of grew up and knew from the very beginning. I don't remember what like my thoughts were back then. I know we played it a lot. I know we enjoyed it. It probably fell to the wayside a little bit more just because the multiplayer only extended to 2 players. But regardless, I still loved it as a kid. And in fact, our family owned, we call them wave runners or jet skis, whatever you want to call them. We actually, my dad owned a couple of them while we were, kids growing up. And so I had actually been on them and driven them or whatever. And so I was already kind of a fan of the vehicle and kind of knew what it felt like to be in the water and how choppy it can be and all that stuff. So I think that put me at a different perspective than maybe most kids would be. So I already kind of appreciated it more. So just the fact of having a game like this, that a racing game, which was different than what I was used to. Mostly it was just, cars and racing, that kind of stuff. So it was a whole new thing for me. And to this day, I still think it's great. I think that it's aged pretty well. I still think it looks pretty decent. No, it looks good. It doesn't look decent. It looks good. And so I'm still really happy with the game. I still enjoy it. I was getting pretty frustrated with the higher difficulties. this week, but it was like a healthy frustration. It wasn't, anger. So I still think it's great. I think it has awesome music, and I don't know. I think a lot of people view pretty highly of it. So I think it's held up. So
All right.
yeah. So those are our initial thoughts. Let's go ahead and jump into behind the scenes. All right, we're now going to go ahead and take a look at some facts and interesting tidbits of things that happened behind the scenes of making this game. So, Kay, you want to start us off, man?
Yeah, cool. So this is actually technically a sequel because the original Wave Race was released for the Game Boy in 1992, and that was a personal watercraft racing video game developed by Nintendo EAD and obviously published by Nintendo as well. So that was the first game in the Wave Race series. That game was quite simple. The player controls a jet skier around the track, and it's sort of like a top-down view, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I've never actually played that one myself, but I've seen a couple videos of it. So yeah, you just versus a computer, or you can play with up to 3 different friends using the link cable. So correct me then. Is it up to 4-player multiplayer then on the Game Boy?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You and 3 friends.
So yeah, the Game Boy's got more players than the N64 version.
Interesting. Yeah. I've never played it either, but from what I saw on it, I guess there was only 2 modes in the game, so it was a pretty simple game. To be honest, I kind of forgot that this existed. In fact, when I was reading about it, a lot of things I was reading didn't even really push it back to the original. I kind of had to find it. It wasn't like Wave Race 64 is a sequel to the Game Boy game Wave Race. It was like, it almost felt like they were ashamed of it or something, and so it was like not as but I never played it, so but still I thought it was interesting because I guess I didn't realize that existed.
Well, I mean, I was a big Game Boy a big Game Boy guy in the early to mid 90s, and I didn't know about this game until after the N64 one. My local gaming catalogue suddenly started pushing the Game Boy version in the mid to late 90s, and at the time I thought it was released at the same time. I thought they'd just done a portable version. It wasn't until a couple of years ago that I realised it had actually come years before. So I guess it's kind of like Pilot Wings, which were released on the Super Nintendo, in that early on with the N64 you had Wave Race and Pilot Wings 64, which were kind of like these high concept sequels to relatively unknown Nintendo IPs from earlier on.
Yeah, I kind of wish they still did that, to be honest. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, modern Nintendo does tend to stick within the same 4 or 5 IPs, don't they?
Yeah, unfortunately. So this game released in Japan September 27th, 1996, and then North America in November 1st of 1996, and then in the PAL region April 29th, 1997, which April 29th is about 10 days from now. And so that was why we decided to do this episode. It's coming up on its 20th anniversary, 20th birthday over in the PAL region. So hey, what the heck, we might as well celebrate this awesome game. So
awesome. So yeah, much like Super Mario 64, Wave Race actually got a re-release in summer 1997, July actually, in Japan, and that was called the Wave Race 64 Shindo Park Tayo version. That re-release took advantage of the Rumble Pack, which was called the Shindo Pack in Japan, and it also added ghost functions for the time trial. In addition, some of the songs and sound effects in the game were altered as well. Now, from what I could find, because I did a little bit of research myself, I believe the songs were altered to match the Western release, if you get what I mean.
What?
So when the game came out in America and Europe, some of the songs had changed, and then the second version in Japan used these American and European songs.
Oh, I didn't realize they changed them between Japanese and the other two.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I had no idea that they did this, and so I randomly was trying to look up and see if there was any like cool speed running glitches for this game, which I wasn't really finding any. It was just people who were really good at it. But there was one person doing a speed run of the game, and they were using this version, which was confusing because the announcer was speaking English, but so I thought maybe it was the English version, but then they had all these different sound effects, and I was like, what the heck is this? Is this some like modified version that somebody did? And so once I saw this, I was like, oh, that makes more sense. That's probably what I don't know why the announcer wasn't speaking Japanese though, but that was the only thing I didn't really understand. But still kind of a cool fact.
Well, they do that with a few Japanese games. If it's like meant to be given off like an American feel, they'll just keep the American voice actor. It's just like, I guess, a cool cultural thing. Like, even if they don't understand it, it kind of adds to that feel.
Yeah, it's cool that they did that. That makes sense. So Wave Race 64 was released for the Wii on the Virtual Console back in August 6th of 2007. And unlike most of the games on the Virtual Console, Wave Race 64 was modified. And the in-game Kawasaki and Fanta banners were removed, most likely owing to an expired licensing deal with those companies. So they basically took those out and put Wii and Nintendo DS advertisements over them, which is something they like to do, it seems like, with some games. The jet skis themselves had been slightly modified as well. Took the Kawasaki logos off those. Also on the title screen of Wave Race 64, they removed the Kawasaki logo, which was kind of the big thing. Even on the front of the box art, you got Kawasaki jet ski or whatever. However, it was released on the Wii U Virtual Console on December 31st, 2015. In August for the US, and the Kawasaki banners and logos were restored. So something happened. I don't know. They must have made nice with them and were able to add them back in, I guess. I don't know. It seems like a lot of work to take them out and then put them back in, but I'm assuming maybe fans complained, so they eventually fixed it.
Yeah, they must have done. It's interesting. You don't often hear about, licensing being taken out of a game and then put back in. So I noticed that when I booted it up today, because I was sure that I'd heard, all the licenses had been removed, and I was looking at that, I was like, huh? And then you compiled this trivia, and I was like, oh, okay, very strange, but
So wait, did you play this on the Wii U?
Yeah, I did. That's what I was saying. I was playing it on the Wii U, and I saw the banners were in, but I thought they'd all been removed from every version post N64.
No, I just wanted to hear you admit that on an N64 podcast you didn't even play it on the N64.
Well, there's no point, is there?
Oh, there's always a point.
No, if I had the cartridge, I would have, but I couldn't find the cartridge for very cheap.
I just couldn't be bothered.
I just couldn't be bothered, mate. Anyway, moving on.
Fair enough. Okay.
So, Miyamoto once stated that Wave Race 64 taps 80% of the Nintendo 64's power, and remains to this day one of the most advanced N64 games ever released. The game features accurate wave physics, which are notorious for being difficult to program, and I guess especially on the N64 hardware, which is pretty primitive by today's standards.
Yeah.
So Tomonobu Itagaki, the creator of Dead or Alive, he included a jet ski mode on Dead or Alive Extreme 2 because apparently he's a big fan of Wave Race 64.
Well, and I know you're a big fan of Dead or Alive Extreme 2, right?
Right.
You used to hold the speedrun record for it, which was pretty great, dude.
Yeah, but I lost it, so I don't want to talk about that.
Sorry, I don't mean to bring up ex-lovers. All right.
I don't even know what that game is. I've only played Dead or Alive 3. What's the difference between Extreme and regular, dude?
Bro, you don't know?
No, I don't.
Well, I'm not telling you because you're just going to have to figure it out. You're going to have to go buy it and see,
Okay.
because it's extra extreme. I'll tell you that much. But that's all I'm gonna say.
Well, thanks for the heads up, mate.
I really have no idea. I've never played any of those games. All right, let's move on to the presentation. All right, it's now time for us to talk about the presentation of the game. Visuals such as polygons, textures, draw distance, and frame rates, as well as the audio of the game, which includes the music and sound effects added into the game. So go ahead and start us off with visuals. Kay, take it away.
Yeah, okay. So I think you mentioned earlier that this game looks good, and yeah, that's a good way of putting it, because I think often on this show we always tend to use the phrase "it looked good for the time," or "oh, it doesn't hold up, but it looked great back then." But this actually looked really good playing it today. It's bright, it's colourful. If you're talking about polygons specifically, I guess the characters are a little low poly, but the jet skis themselves, which is where all the attention was put in, they look great. And the water looks incredible.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't want to sound hyperbolic, but yeah, the water looks GameCube quality, put it like that.
Totally.
And then, like, you know, the texture work was good. I didn't really notice anything janky. You know, the banners are all nice, and, you know, I mean, I'm playing on the Wii U version, but it's on a 4K TV, so from its intended resolution, it's like, what, 16 times higher, and it still holds up pretty well. Draw distance, can't say I noticed any problems. There was no pop in, everything was clear, even on, like, you know, some of the courses where you've got like a really long straight, like everything looked pretty clear from, you know, all the way back. Didn't pick up on any fogging at all. And the frame rate was consistent. I'm not a frame expert, but it seemed to be running at a solid 30, which is...
You didn't see any fog in Drake Lake?
Well, yeah, no, but that was intended fog. There was no, like, fogging to hide rendering or anything.
Got you, dude. I got you so good.
Don't diss Drake Lake. Drake Lake's the best.
No, dude, that's a good one. I was just trying to make it funny. No, as far as the draw distance goes, I did notice sometimes the I don't know what they're called, buoys or whatever. The red
Buoys.
and yellow. What?
It's pronounced boy.
No, it's not.
It seriously is.
You can have a girl and a boy, but the thing that floats in the water is a
It's
buoy.
pronounced boy.
Boy?
Unless Americans pronounce it different, yeah.
We definitely
Because
don't
my
call
dad
it
always
boy.
used to pull the joke, oh, look, there's a boy in the water, ha ha ha.
Yeah, we call it buoy over here, which it's like David Bowie.
Okay.
Anyway, sometimes you can only see so far off as far those, and so I would notice those pop in from time to time. If you could kind of see far down, you would only be able to see like one, and then the second one would pop in as you got a little bit closer. But other than that, the draw distance on everything else seemed to be fine. I think it was just those. They kind of, I think after you get so far away from it, it pops in, and so some of them I kind of wished it would pop in a little bit quicker, but other than that, I didn't have any issues with it. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
that's fine, dude. That's fine. I mean, I'm wondering if perhaps maybe the draw distance was altered on the Wii U version, because I didn't notice any boys popping in, which is a weird sentence.
Very weird.
Maybe I should take a look at some N64 footage alongside the... And yes, I know I've kind of fallen on my own sword here, and I'm kind of admitting that I should have played the cartridge, but whatever. But yeah, a couple of interesting effects in this game. There's... I don't know if I'd call it lens flare, because it's not like what you'd expect from lens flare in like a modern game, but it's like a simulated effect which, you know, it brings off the effect of lens flare.
It's definitely a lens flare, bro. I
Really?
think so. I would say it is, yeah.
It seemed a
Definitely.
little... It didn't seem quite organic enough for me, but it still looked good for the time. It was, you know, it's one more effect they didn't have to do, but they did it just to, you know, give off that sort of, you know, sunshine feel. And then back to the water, really, like I was saying before, like this water, I compare it to any other N64 game. Can you think of anything that even comes close?
No. I mean, there's a couple other water games that I can think of, but I don't really remember them having as good a water as this. Plus, like if they did have decent looking water, it didn't work the way that this water does. Because in this water, if you come up to a big wave, you're going to ramp off it, you know. Whereas in a lot of water games, other water games, there's not that many. You just drive right through the water and it doesn't really affect you. There's no actual, you know, physics to it. So yeah, so not only does it look good, but it actually like works. And I think that's what they were talking about earlier, where they were saying, you know, the game featured accurate wave physics, which were really difficult to program. I would totally believe it. But I also noticed that I thought the people that are standing on the jet skis, I thought they looked pretty realistic in their, you know, animations. I don't know if they're motion capture or if they were just, you know, frame animated or whatever. But like when you lose, you kind of drop to your knees and you're all sad, and when you win, you celebrate. I thought those looked pretty good and not too, you know, staticky, you know. And the different tricks that you can do, like where you do a handstand on your bike, those ones, you stand up on it. I don't know, it all just looked fluid. It looked real. So I thought visually, those were really impressive too. I don't know if you noticed that or thought about that.
Yeah, I think the animation was great. The animation was, it definitely served the game well, and looked, especially early N64, it looked pretty good. It's just the models themselves were quite low poly. Like the characters looked a bit more blocky than a lot of games from that era. So, but you know, they focused the prowess on other areas, and I think for this game it really worked. Like, I didn't sit there thinking, "Oh, I wish the characters looked better," because I guess then you'd have to sacrifice, you know, something from the water or from the textures, or you know. So, yeah, I think they made compromises where they had to, but it doesn't take away from the game at all.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else visually that we need to talk about. I mean, I thought it was cool that they added, you know, the dolphins, the infamous dolphins. There's some killer whales. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that kind of has a mind of its own in the game that is kind of just randomly thrown in there. But no, I just thought those were really cool. I thought they were nice additions. When you're, you know, driving around at the beginning, learning how to kind of do everything, you can follow this dolphin around and it shows you around and kind of teaches you the ropes. I don't know, it was a cool added feature thing that they did that they didn't really have to. I thought it worked pretty well. So,
well, the dolphin looked more believable than the character models.
Yeah. They probably spent a lot of time on that dolphin.
Yeah.
The killer whale always stays so far away you can't really see it that up close, but yeah. So, okay, then the other half is then the audio. Music wise, what were your thoughts?
I thought this game had a great soundtrack. I mean, obviously we are a big fan of the main theme because that is the main theme for Strictly. So
yeah, so they got to hear it twice today, didn't they?
Right, yeah, or maybe even 3 times. You never know.
Oh boy.
But yeah, so I mean, I've always liked the main theme for this game, but as I mentioned, I didn't really play too much beyond the first couple stages until this week, so I hadn't heard a lot of the later tracks. But yeah, no, it holds up throughout. There's a bit of variety, like you know, sort of obviously you start off with the more sort of upbeat, rocky feel, you know, during the initial couple of beach stages, and then you get to like Drake Lake, and it kind of, you know, it's a bit more melancholy. Yeah. And then, you know, you move forward to the, there's like a harbour stage after that, and it's, you know, a bit more industrial. So, yeah, they definitely tried to match the, you know, music design with the, you know, environments, and pulled it off pretty well. They managed to have a varied soundtrack when they didn't really need to, but they made the effort and it works. Yeah, good soundtrack. I liked it.
Yeah, I agree. I think you kind of covered it all, to be honest. yeah, when we were trying to think of a game to do, as the main theme song, I thought this was a good one. It kind of encompasses the 90s feel really well, I thought, with like, the synthesizer and all that. And then, I don't know, it's just upbeat and fun and exciting. And a lot of people remember it, surprisingly. In fact, a lot of people, the people that I know that have watched or have listened to our show, they always come back to me and say, hey, man, that just hearing that intro makes me want to go play that game. And so I think that says a lot about the game's music, is that, just hearing it, I think kind of, makes people all of a sudden, oh, wow, yeah, I remember that. So yeah, music, thumbs up, probably one of my favorites. All right, also was sound effects. Sometimes there's a lot to talk about with sound effects, sometimes not so much. I thought the jet skis sounded good. I thought the sound effects for them sounded cool. I liked that when you bumped into people, kind of made ooh, and when you'd hit the boys, when you'd run over to those boys with your jet ski, they kind of made a little like boom sound. I don't know, it's like little things like that they didn't really have to do that I thought were pretty good. One of the big things about sound effects we should mention is the announcer. What were your thoughts on the announcer guy?
Yeah, the announcer's pretty cool, isn't he?
I didn't mind him. I mean, he says a lot of the same things over and over, but it never really got annoying to me.
Yeah, no, he's good. He's he's not quite the classic that is the ISS.
No, nowhere close.
Totally. Like, nothing's going to top that. But yeah, no, again, it's sort of it's got a very American feel to it. The announcer really helps with that. And I like how they got him to announce a bunch of stuff which isn't even that important. Like, what was it? I'm trying to think. There's like, when you get a new lap record, he'll tell you the exact amount of seconds that you've improved it by. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh yeah.
Like, I think when I got to the final stage on normal mode, and I think the standard lap record on the CPU was like 33 seconds, and I did it in like 28. And he's like, new lap record, you are 5 seconds ahead. I was like, oh, thanks, mate.
Nice, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I noticed that, and like when you get ahead of everybody else, sometimes he'll tell you you're ahead of everybody else or something, stuff like that, where you're like, that's not normally what people would say, but it's cool.
Also, I love how his reaction to you missing a boy goes, because you can miss up to 5 boys during a race.
Right.
It goes from like really chilled out to super stressful. Like when you miss your second boy, he's like, don't worry, keep going. And you miss one more, and he's like, whoa, don't miss any more.
Yeah, that's true. When I was playing 2-player with my buddy, I kept missing a bunch of buoys because I was, just trying to beat him. And so I would always get down to where I could only miss like one more. And yeah, you could definitely feel the stress. Another thing I forgot to mention visually is the HUD. HUD, however you say it. I always screw it up. I don't know. I always feel like with racing games, I feel like there's too much going on. And so I feel like it distracts from a lot of the visuals outside of, of where you're racing. You can't really look around as much because there's, it's telling you what your lap time is and what place you're in and how fast you're going, how many buoys. So there's just a lot going on visually all around you. But I will say, I do think it is nice that they have, all the, was there 4 or 5 racers going on at a time, and so it shows you who's in what place, and then if somebody crashes, their head kind of drops down while they're getting back on, and so you can kind of tell if people ahead of you, have crashed or whatever. So there was things about it I liked, and then there was some things that I felt like it was a little crowded, but that seems to be the normal thing for these kinds of games, so they're not going to change it just because I don't like it. So anyway, anything else you want to add visual or audio wise before we move on?
No, I think we did a pretty good job covering it all, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd say so. All right, let's head into gameplay and mechanics. All right, now we're going to discuss the overall gameplay as well as the mechanics of the game. This includes the overall story, objective, and narrative of the game, if there is one, as well as controls, the menu, and the overall feel of the game itself. Kay, you want to start us off with the story? What's the story here, man?
You're gonna have to tell me because I just dove straight into Championship, so I don't know what the story is.
I'll tell you. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Here's what the story is. All right, so you're one of the racers, and you're trying to be the very best.
Right.
And win all the races.
Okay. So, at what point during this hero's journey is there like a deception or betrayal or redemptive arc? Anything like that?
It has to do with the dolphin, but I don't want to spoil it for the listeners.
Oh, okay.
So
that's something I haven't seen yet. Yeah, that comes in the harder difficulties, right?
Exactly. Okay, so obviously there's not a lot of story. Maybe you could tell us about the main objective of the game. Maybe you could go through the game modes for us real quick.
Yeah, okay. So obviously the main mode where everyone's going to be spending their time would be, Championship. And so basically the player has to beat a series of tracks and do their best to win first place overall. And you've got 4 different levels of difficulty. You've got normal, hard, expert, and reverse, which is basically sort of like mirror mode from Mario Kart, but instead of being flipped left or right, they're kind of flipped backwards to... You're basically going the other way around the tracks. And reverse, it takes on the difficulty spike of expert as well. You can't skip ahead. You need to individually unlock each of these modes. So you beat normal to unlock hard, expert, reverse. And also, depending on the difficulty, you'll have a different amount of courses. So there's a standard 6 on the normal mode. And then if you go on hard mode, you get an extra course between the 5th and 6th. And if you go on expert, you get an additional course after that one, so you end up with 8 courses altogether. Each track has a specific set of points that the player must achieve in order to move on to the next track, and if the required quantity is not met, you'll be disqualified and the game will be over. The ranking that you finish in determines how many points you get. So if you get first place, you get 7 points. Second place, you get 4. Third and fourth place, 2 and 1 respectively. And players who are disqualified during the race do not receive any points. Now, during my first match today, first round, I was like losing really bad, so I just paused and clicked restart. Can you do that at any point, or are you limited? I didn't actually figure that out.
Were you on the first race when you did that?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you stop on a later race, you have to do the whole thing over.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like Mario Kart where you get like 3 chances.
No, that would be nice. But yeah, I tried that at one point. It was like, I can't remember what the exact options were, but it was like retire, start the circuit over or something, or whatever. And so just quit. Yeah. So I think that's what the options were on that.
Okay. Yeah, so warm-up, you're going to have to hit that one because I skipped right over this.
Yeah, so warm-up mode, as a kid, this was honestly where I spent more of my time, just because it's kind of free ride mode where you can just kind of run around. And that's where you, like I was saying, you're in Dolphin Park, and so you're following around this dolphin. And there's a couple ramps and things that you can drive around and explore. And you can learn how to do tricks and things in there. And so it's kind of telling you, there's little prompts that come up at the bottom of the screen telling you how to do different moves and things. And you can honestly just ignore it and do whatever you want, or you can follow what it's telling you. And then right from there, you can jump right into championship mode. But I can't remember if it's there or if it's in time trials or stunt mode. But that's where a lot of, I think, the cheats and stuff you do is in either warm up or one of those 2 modes. But We may or may not talk about that later. So that's warm up. It's just for basically for new people that are just trying to learn the controls, or people who haven't played in a while, trying to kind of remember how everything goes. So after you get out of that, so there's that option, and then there's also time trials, which is your typical time attack mode, where you're trying to get your best times. It's saved into your game data, but you can only do the courses that you've unlocked by playing championships. So, and the cool thing about this, I don't know if we make mention of it later, but the cool thing about this game is everything saves onto the cartridge, but if you wanted to, you could also save any of your data onto memory cards. And so I thought that was kind of neat. I don't know, did I explain that right?
Yeah, no, you did, yeah. And I think we've looked at a couple games so far which allow that. And it tends to be these sort of competitive games, more like sports games and racing games, because I guess the idea is you can save your best times and then put it on the controller pack and take it over a friend's house and see if they can beat your times, I guess.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't sound that fun to me. If it was like a ghost, if it was a ghost or something, I could understand it, but it doesn't really sound fun to me. But hey.
Well, it was the 90s. It was a simpler time.
Yeah, that's true. So good on people who were into it. But and then another mode was stunt mode, where you play solo and you're basically doing tricks and stunts to get points, as well as passing through these hoops as you go. And so, yeah, I haven't really spent as much time with this one. I did enjoy doing the tricks and stuff, the stunts, I guess they call them. But I didn't spend too much time with this. I more enjoyed racing against people. But it's a pretty cool option to do. And I think this is the one where you did the cheats, where you could ride on the dolphin. Were you aware of that? Okay.
Yeah, no, I wasn't aware of that, no.
Yeah, there's I forget the actual combination, but if you do all these different tricks in a certain order in a certain time, you'll hear this like dolphin noise, and then you quit back to the main menu, and then you go into championship mode or free mode, warm-up mode, I can't remember which it is, and basically you just all of a sudden you're riding a dolphin instead of a jet ski. And nice. So as a kid, I remember knowing about this and knowing how to do it, but I could never seem to figure out how to get it to work. And now I'm starting to realize I think I was doing it in warm-up instead of stunt mode. But it's a little complex, actually, but it's still kind of cool. Anyway, and then the last option is two-player versus, which we briefly hit on. It's pretty self-explanatory. You play against another person. So yeah, I played with my buddy a couple weeks ago. I think I mentioned it last week. We raced against each other, and we had a fun time. I think he enjoyed it. We just kind of played through every level, and then we were like, okay, I guess we should just go do something else. So for now, so like nowadays, maybe it's not as exciting, but back then it was still pretty cool. But like I said, being locked to two-player was kind of a bummer for me and my two brothers. But regardless, it was cool. All right, so Kay, do you want to run us down the 4 characters of this game?
Right, yeah, okay. So you've only got 4 characters to choose from. The main dude, and this is who I played as during my time with the game, is Ryota Hayami, or Hayami. He's 18, Japanese, and he's kind of like, the balanced middle ground character. So, it can be used by beginners because obviously the handling's a little bit, easier to get used to. And, experts, if they want something a bit, balanced in the middle, no particular strength either way. Yeah, he's a character for everyone. I guess he's this game's equivalent to the Mario Kart middleweights, like Mario, Luigi.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Then you got Dave Mariner, 32 from the USA, and he's the biggest, fattest, and fastest character. So he's got pretty poor handling. I mean, I didn't play as him, so I'm just going by what you said here. Poor handling, poor grip, and poor acceleration, but obviously once you really get going, then he's got the best speed, and he's recommended for advanced players. Personally, I think it sounds like it'd be a bit of a nightmare to play as, because most of my time with this game was making sharp turns. I can't think of that many cases where a good top speed would be advantageous, but I guess if you're an expert, then you can probably figure out a strategy.
Yeah.
Then you've got Ayumi Stewart, 21 years old, from the USA, the only female in the game. She's the smallest, skinniest, and slowest character, but she's got the best handling and acceleration. So, good choice for beginners, I guess.
Yeah, probably.
And then finally, you've got Miles. Is it Jetta or Jeta? Jeta.
That's a good question. I don't know how you would pronounce that now that I look at it.
Okay, we'll just call him Miles for now.
Yeah.
The only character who was absent in Blue Storm, which is the GameCube sequel.
Right.
Miles has the quickest steering, responding, and the worst grip, but is average in all of the categories, so he's recommended for intermediate to expert players. His skills are especially useful in stunt mode thanks to his quick response time and his tight cornering.
Interesting.
Yeah, and obviously you can customize each character's category. However, this will only change the skills of the character in a limited tolerance. So if you set Dave Mariner to maximum controllability, for example, it wouldn't make him equal to Miles. I'm calling him. Yeah. So
yeah, I
it's
never
kinda
really
like
messed
a
with
tolerance
that.
threshold, but I didn't screw around with that. I just, as I say, I played with the generic Ryota Hayami and just didn't touch the settings.
Me too. Yeah, it's interesting because I don't remember these names. I'm sure I know they've always been there, but for some reason I never called them. I didn't realize these names, I guess. I don't know why. I want to say we called them something else, but maybe I'm just thinking that up, or it was on my save or something. I don't know, because I think you can change your name in it or whatever, or you can change their names. I can't remember. But anyway, another cool thing is I think if you held down on the thumbstick, you could change the color of their outfit. I think everybody had an alternate outfit. Did you notice that? No,
I didn't know.
Yeah, so I always play as the Ryota guy. He was just, I don't know, he's a cool dude. And I think if you held down, his outfit changed from like blue to red or whatever. So that's kind of cool. That's fun.
Just before we jump into courses, I was going to say, should we talk a little bit about the controls?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to talk about that and just kind of explain how the race actually works. So yeah, however we want to do that is fine with me. Okay,
well, if you want to shoot ahead and explain like the race setup and mechanic itself, I think you'd be better at explaining that.
Yeah, I mean, it's relatively simple. Yeah, I mean, it's like most racing games. You're trying to beat everybody else to the finish line. But the cool thing that this game does, and we've already kind of mentioned it a little bit, is the buoys in it that you have to... I'm not going to try to use the correct terminology on it, but basically there's two different colored buoys, and they require you to go either left or right of them, depending on the color and the way that the arrow's pointing to. And so in order for you to not be disqualified by missing numerous buoys, you have to, go around them. And every time you do that, it builds up your, I think it's just called power in the game, but it's basically your overall speed. And so the more of those you hit, the more power you get until you hit maximum power. And so at that point you're going to be going faster. So that was something they added for whatever reason. I assume it was just to keep you from just going the most shortest route, or just hugging the inside and staying on the inside. It was a smart way for them to require you to explore the level a little bit more. And as the difficulty progresses, the amount of buoys and the distance between them and where they put them changes. And so that is something as the game progresses changes and becomes more hard. Like the buoys in Drake Lake in expert mode are really difficult. I don't know if you did that one, Kay.
I just did normal mode.
Okay, yeah, they get really difficult and frustrating, and but yeah, that's part of the game, and I think it was pretty genius because there's not a lot of games that do that. I know, like a lot of skiing games, you do stuff like that, but this was kind of a cool way to maybe try to keep things a little bit even for somebody. Because if you decide to just skip a buoy, yeah, you can, and you might keep your lead, but people might catch you because you lost, your maximum power, and so that gives people an opportunity to maybe catch up. So, so that's kind of overall the main idea of the race itself. Did you want to talk about the controls then?
Yeah. So the controls are quite interesting for this game because obviously you can either use the Z trigger or the A button to use the throttle, so accelerate basically. And then you can use the R shoulder button to kind of use it for like tight turns, but so it's kind of like the drift in go-kart games, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you use the R button a lot? Because to me, it actually made my turns worse.
No, I never use it. According to this, the R button slides on the water's surface to slide on the water surface. So kind of like you said. But no, I don't use it. In fact, I kind of forgot that you could. I don't even. Yeah.
I tried it for a while and I kept falling off the jet ski. So what I do is when I took corners, I just hold off the throttle and then kind of just tap it a little bit and then go full throttle when I'm around the corner. And you kind of, once you get a feel for it and you feel out the physics and you know how it works, you can do some really good maneuvering. I'm guessing the R button helps if you're an expert player, and perhaps it works better with some of the other characters more than with the standard. I forgot his name already. Ryota. But yeah, I just kept falling off when I was trying to slide, so I didn't use that. You can also use the B button to kind of soften the jet ski when you're going over waves, which I used that a little bit. It didn't always seem to make that much of a difference, but I kind of just, if I was hitting some heavy waves or like one big wave, I'd kind of tap it a few times just to try and, I don't know if you're supposed to hold it in or tap it. What do you do?
I had no idea you could do that. Dude, I'm looking at this thing, and I'm just now realizing how much more complex this game is than I ever thought it was. I've been playing it like a child, even still.
So you've literally just been using the analog stick and the throttle.
Yeah, dude, nothing else, and I feel like such a noob. But no, I have this game complete in box, and I didn't realize that it comes with a Wave Race 64 operations card, which is this thick piece of card stock that has a bunch of the controls separate from the instruction booklet. And man, there's a bunch of stuff. All right, so let me read what it says here for the A button with the throttle. To do a rocket start, press the A button as the start signal light turns green. Didn't know that. Time it correctly and the engine's power level will level up to max power. Holy crap, dude, that's like a Mario Kart thing. And I always kind of noticed that certain people were, getting off the start faster than me, but now I know why. So sorry, I didn't mean to derail.
No, it's fine. It's just, I will say, it's very hard to time it correctly.
Is it?
It's like you have to be almost frame perfect, because I only managed to do it twice out of like 7 races.
Okay. Wow. All right. So let's see what else there is control wise. The control stick does a number of different things. You have your handling. When you're turning, you'll turn sharper if you do not release the accelerator. The farther off center you are, the tilt control stick, the sharper your turn will be. You also have a center of gravity, kind of forward and backward when you're in the air. And then you can also do a quick turn, which I didn't know, where you tilt the control stick kind of around and then to the back, as you do, and it does a tight, quick turn. Perfecting this technique is very important, and I don't know how to do that clearly. So, and then obviously there's a bunch of moves that you can do in the air, acrobatic maneuvers as they're called. There's flip, there's clockwise barrel roll, counterclockwise barrel roll, handstand, backward, yeah, where you're riding the jet ski backward, and then you can stand up on it, and then you can do a somersault on it, which I had no idea you could do a somersault. It's pretty cool, dude. It sounds like you're farting over there. Are you passing gas?
No, I'm fine. That's my chair.
Your chair sounds like farts. I just figured we should probably address it because I feel like it's making the listeners uncomfortable, and I just needed to check.
Don't
with
worry,
you.
I'll cut it out in post if I have to.
All right, thanks. I'm just kidding. Anyway, anything else control-wise that we should mention? Because I clearly knew nothing about the controls, so this was very interesting.
No, well, that's just what I had to say. It's like, you do have all these advanced techniques and maneuvers available, but I pretty much relied on the throttle the whole time, and I sailed through normal mode. But I guess for the higher difficulties, you probably have to master some of the more advanced techniques.
Yeah, no, I agree, because I was getting schooled in hard mode, and so if I ever want to beat those, I'm going to have to figure some of these out, especially some of those tight turns. My turns were pretty rough, and it's not one of those where you can just let off the gas and kind of finish your turn. If you're way too far out, you still have to be holding the gas to some degree. And so anyway, but yeah, so those are the controls. I figured now we could just kind of briefly go through the 9 courses, and just if we had any thoughts, maybe just quickly mention them, and then we can move on and wrap this thing up. How's that sound?
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, so first one is, as we mentioned, is Dolphin Park. It's kind of the introductory course. It's pretty simple. It's really just kind of down, turn, come back, turn. So it's pretty simple. Wait, no, I'm thinking of Sunny Beach. Dolphin Park is just the one where you warm up. Sunny Beach is the first technical level, and that is the one where it's a big oval shape, and you're just going down and back, kind of learning the ropes of making those turns. It's a super beginner level. There's not a lot to it. Kay, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, Sunset Bay, Stage 2. That's, well, yeah, like the name says, it is a bay, just as the sun's setting. It's a moderate curving stage with boats and sandy inner areas.
And sandy inner areas.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? Yeah, no, I kind of like this stage, but I think out of the 6 that I played, because as I say, I only played normal mode and I didn't play the warm-up, I think out of the 6, this was probably the least memorable, personally. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it, it's just all the others stood out a little bit more. You know, they all had an interesting gimmick, whereas this is kind of like, yeah, it's another bay in the sun setting, and yeah. It was...
That was weird. No, I think that the cool thing about it is that it is the sunset, and so the water is basically orange, and so I think that is kind of a cool aesthetic, especially, you know, for the time, and so I think that was the big part of it. So, but yeah, not bad, but like you said, nothing super spectacular. I'll let you take this next one as well, because I know this was your favorite level.
Okay, so Drake Lake. Not only is that the best name I've ever heard for a stage in my life, but it was also my favourite level, because it's basically set on like a lake, in a more sort of, I guess, country sort of setting. It's got, you know, like a very sort of green and, you know, just a serene aesthetic. You know, like you said, there's a bit of fog at the start of the stage. You mentioned that earlier. But I think, is it after the first lap it starts to clear off?
Yeah, it's like, I think even in the second one there's a little bit, and then I think after you hit like the third, it's like completely gone.
Right, yeah. So, and apparently the buoy positioning gets really complex in the higher difficulties.
Yeah.
Which would make it really tough for someone like Dave. But as I say, I only played in normal mode, and it was pretty forgiving.
Dave,
So
what did Dave do?
the wave race rider called Dave Mariner.
Oh, I thought you were talking about our friend Dave.
No. David can handle a jet ski like a pro.
Yeah, no, I didn't really mention. So remember how in this level there's those wooden poles that kind of stick up at one point, and you kind of have to go through them?
Yeah, the unbreakable planks at the end of the stage, right?
Yes, I think it's like a broken down dock or something. But yeah, those, they put all these buoys in those, and so you have to hit like 2 or 3, and so it gets crazy. And so yeah, it's pretty nuts. And then the other cool thing about this level is there's one part where there's like a little island that you can basically drive up onto, and then you're just kind of sliding across it. And did you ever do that? It was like, I don't know, it slows you down, but it's super fun. So I just
I did on one lap. Yeah, I accidentally went up there, but then I thought, oh, screw it, I'll roll with it, and yeah, I sort of slid off the edge, and that was pretty cool.
It is cool.
It's one of the few times I can think of where you get to interact with non-watery terrain.
Definitely.
So
yeah, no, I agree. It's a good level. Next up is Marine Fortress. This level is probably one of the more frustrating levels to me, especially in the higher difficulty. You're basically racing around some sort of castle or keep of certain things. There's a lot of floating planks and boxes, which I will get back to in a minute. It also starts off where there's a giant wall in your way as soon as you start off.
yeah,
And so you either have to decide, am I going to gamble hitting a wave that'll launch me over it, or do I just go around it? And I found as I was playing through this most recent times here, I just went around it every time. I was like not gambling with it, especially when I was racing my buddy. I was like, I'm not going to hit that stinking wall. But the thing that really frustrated me about this in hard mode is those floating boxes and things that I mentioned. They like intensify. There's like a ton of them, and you can't really see them because this level is pretty choppy. There's a lot of waves, and so all of a sudden you'll just hit one and you fall off your jet ski, and you have to get back on. And it was every lap at one turn, I always was getting hit by boxes, and it was so frustrating. And that was actually where I ended up, I think, placing last, and which then, like, in the next race I ended up getting kicked out because I did so bad the one before. Anyway, so that was frustrating. But the other thing that I found weird about this one is a lot of the turns you don't know what's going to be on the other side, and so sometimes I'd make the turn and I would either make it too sharp and then I'd hit a wall, or I'd come around it too wide and I'd miss a buoy. And so this one was a little frustrating for me. I don't know if you had any similarities.
Yeah, no, I liked the aesthetic, and I really liked, you mentioned the opening straight where you've got that wall. Like,
Right.
2 of the 3 laps I actually rode the wave over the top of that wall.
Nice.
So I like that. That was cool. But yeah, the turns did start to get a little bit obnoxious.
Yeah.
I think I was down to my last possible buoy when I finished the stage. Like, I
Wow.
missed 4 out of 5. So
Yeah.
and that was just on normal mode. So
Right.
so anything else, or should I move on
Nope.
to the next one?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So yeah, next up was Port Blue. And so, yeah, we're now on to the 5th stage. So if you're playing on normal mode, this is like the penultimate stage. And it's set in a port, so there's like ships and cargo platforms around. And so it was interesting. I didn't realize this when I saw, before you start the race, you get to see like a very basic 3D model of the course,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I forgot.
kind of like a mini map.
Right.
So I noticed on this mini map, it looked like there was a bunch of different routes. And when I started the course, I was trying to kind of keep my eye out for like a shortcut or something, but it looked like everywhere was kind of like gated off or walled off. But then, you wrote up in this document, and I found out later that depending on the difficulty, it will be like a different route each time.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's this like really weird shortcut that goes right through the middle, where it's like a bunch of 90-degree turns.
Dude, yeah, let me speak into that real quick. Holy crap, that was so frustrating. And in fact, the first time I did it, I didn't realize that they'd closed off the main route. I just kind of naturally went into, because they just bar the wall up completely. You can't go into the normal, entry. You just go into the smaller one. And yeah, I think 90-degree turns is very accurate, and they're all metal walls. So like as soon as you hit it, if you're going even a little bit fast, you just immediately get knocked off. So it is very frustrating, super difficult to go even remotely fast through. And I got left behind, man. It was rough. So yeah, this was the level I ended up getting, completely ejected from the race after doing poor the one before it, like we just talked about. And so this hallway was a nightmare. But outside of that, I do want to say that I think this level, the aesthetic and the visual of it is pretty cool. I think it's one of the cooler looking stages. I like all of the ships and the cargo platforms and stuff. It had a really cool feel to it, even though it felt like there was going to be like a loose piece of sharp metal that would just catch my player and I'd have to get like a tetanus shot. But I still think it was a pretty cool level.
Yeah, awesome. All
right, next up was Twilight City, which also made an appearance in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, if I'm remembering that correctly. Doesn't that sound right?
That's not true.
No, that's not it. I thought they were the same city.
No,
I just made that up, dude. Because I know I just know you like Sonic, so I figured you'd.
Weird guy. Keep talking.
Anyway, so it's kind of it's nighttime. It's your cityscape type level, and so there's all these spotlights and glowing arrows on display. This level actually has quite a few ramps in it, which as a kid, ramps are like the coolest thing ever. There's some in levels previous, but this one had quite a few, and if you hit them correctly, some of them even would give you, help you out and get you ahead of people. So other than that, not a whole lot going on in this one. I didn't really struggle with this level. This level was fairly simple in my opinion, but it was a cool aesthetic. I think they could have done a little bit more with it to make it feel like a city, but hey, it was at night and there's lots of shiny lights, so that's cool.
Yeah, so did you actually play this yourself then?
Yes, I did.
Okay, because I thought you said you got booted out before you got this far.
Dude, you know what? I beat normal and hard. It's expert that I couldn't beat.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Okay. I'm getting those confused. I'm sorry. No.
That's fine.
I beat. No, thank you. I beat normal and I beat hard. It was expert that I got kicked out of. Thank you for pointing that out. That makes me sound a little bit better. So, so you didn't play this one then?
No, I didn't play. I didn't play through hard or expert.
That's right. Okay. Cool. Cool. All right. Well, next up is Glacier Coast. I did not make it through this far when I played through more recently. It does seem somewhat familiar. I might have played it as a kid. It may have been unlocked when I had it or whatever. But this is the second to last course in Expert Championship mode. It is one of, if not the hardest levels, according to other people. The frigid setting has the racers jumping over ice and skiing, quote unquote, their jet ski over patches of solid ice. Probably very similar to the little island we were talking about earlier. So it's a snow level. It's kind of interesting to, a snow level is not that, groundbreaking, but for something where it's all about, racing around in the water, it's not necessarily the first thing you would think of. And then the final level is the Southern Island. This course features an abandoned boat in the middle of the course. And apparently it has really aggressive waves in it. And then also has a bridge that can be submerged or raced under, depending on the tide. Why does that sound like a level we played? Which one was the one that had a boat that you could ramp over and there was like docks that you raced under? I feel like we're missing that one. You know what I'm talking about?
Not off the top of my head. Was that not this one?
Yeah, but I played this one. I'm confused. Oh, 6th in normal. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
This is that one. I don't know why they put this last. It's number 8 in expert though, so that's why it's listed last.
Right, yeah.
Interesting. So okay. So you played this one.
I played this. Yeah, this was good. This is one of my favorite stages. It's got like a really cool remix of the main theme of the.
That's right.
Yeah.
I wish I could just cut out that whole brain fart right there. Anyway, yeah, I love this level. I think this level's great. I love that the tide changes the height, and so there's like one ramp that if you try to hit it when the tide's too low, you just run right into it. And there's like a dock that you can go under, or if it's the tide. I tried to like go under it at one point. It was like the first lap, and I just ran into it. And obviously jumping over the ship and riding along the ship or whatever. It's pretty cool. So yeah, I like that one. I didn't realize that was the final stage for expert for some reason, but yeah, that's a good level. I like that one. Anything else you want to add about the levels?
No, I think you've done a good job, dude. I'll just say there's a real good spread of levels, and you know, for a game like you mentioned, it's pretty much based around racing in the water. There were some things in here that I definitely didn't expect. So I think they did a good job mixing it up as best they could when you've got like 8 different stages. So
Definitely.
yeah, good job, guys. And yeah, none of them are bad. I said Sunset Bay, I think it was the least memorable, but that just, you know, it's the least good. It's still not bad. So a real good selection here.
Definitely. All right, with that, we are going to go ahead and move right into our final thoughts. All right, Kay, you want to go ahead and give us your final thoughts?
Yeah, so again, don't really have a lot to say personally because, you know, I only pretty much just discovered this little gem. It's one of those games that I always knew about, and as I say, I played it a little bit back in the day, but for some reason it just never really appealed to me too much. But, you know, through the power of Strictly 64, you know, it was on the schedule. I had to at least play through it, you know, and I'm really glad I did. I had a lot of fun with it. Unfortunately, I don't think it's the kind of game a lot of my friends would enjoy, so I don't think I'm going to get to pull it out for multiplayer too much, but I think I'm definitely going to go back to it later in the week and try and beat the hard mode at least. I'm not sure if I'll be good enough to do expert, but yeah, I'm definitely going to keep playing this one, and the soundtrack will stick with me for a long time.
Definitely. Yeah, I give this game 2 thumbs up. If you haven't played it, it's definitely worth checking out. It's not that expensive to pick up, and I think it's definitely worth, you know, some enjoyment, and great for kids if you have kids and you're trying to show them some of these old classics. This is one of the games that I grew up playing. It was probably one of the first games I played on the system, and so it has a special place in my heart. Wave Race 64 is sure to provide some of the most exciting racing you've ever experienced. Feel the pounding and crashing of the waves as you accelerate into straightaways, whip around the marker buoys, and go airborne on the jump ramps. Don't race alone, challenge a friend.
Was that your natural thoughts?
No, it wasn't. That was the back of the box.
Oh, so. Yeah, your little gimmick. Hey, you didn't read the back of the Mahjong box.
I did not, you're right.
And you spent so long learning Japanese as well.
That was definitely a missed opportunity, unfortunately. Gosh. All right. Well, guys, that is the end. This one went a little long, but I feel like we gave it a nice thorough lashing. So thanks for sticking through to the end. Join us next week as we are going to be taking a look at South Park. Is it called South Park 64 or is it just South Park?
It is. So. Oh no! It's just South Park. Yeah.
Good, I said it right then.
Everyone calls it 64, but it's just South Park.
Interesting. Yeah, this will be a good one. I own this game, but really haven't played more than about 5 minutes of it, so I'm gonna get it out and give it a real good playthrough. It's the first-person shooter, in case you're not remembering which one. You're right, it's definitely just South Park. So we'll be talking about that, and should be fun. So definitely come back and see what happens with that. We have a bunch of episodes now. This is episode 12, and so there are 11 other episodes that we've done with a very wide spread of games. So if you're interested in listening to more of those, go to kateandclay.com, where you can find all of those videos and links to our iTunes feed and our YouTube channel, where you can listen to them there. If you guys have any thoughts, questions, or game requests for games you want us to cover, please send us an email at strictly64@gmail.com. We love hearing from you guys. If you don't want to give us an email, please feel free to tweet at us or hit us up on Instagram, just at strictly64. And if you want to, we'll even read your messages, comments, emails here on the podcast, if that's something that makes you feel good about yourself. I know I like to be read on podcasts. It makes me feel like I have power. So that's not true. But anyway, anything else you want to add, Kay, before we say goodbye?
No, I think we're done for this week, dude.
Dude, let's roll that awesome Wave Race music and get the heck out of here.
Let's hit it.